हरि ओम। ओ ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गायै नमः। ओम श्री रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। भवानी शङ्करो वन्दे श्रद्धाविश्वासरूपिणो याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धा स्वान्तस्तमीश्वरम्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेदसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीताया पतये नमः। बुद्धिर्बलं यशोधैर्यं निर्भयत्वमरोगताम् अजाड्यं वाक्पटुत्वं च हनुमत्स्मरणात् भवेत्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम नमः शिवाय 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 ओम नमः शिवाय। नमः पार्वती पतये। हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम. We shall chant from the first mantra of the first section and third chapter. Dva suparna sayuja sakhaya samanam vraksham parishashva jate tayoranyapippalam swadvatti anashnananyo abhichakashiti samane vrikshe purusho nimagnaha anishaya shochati muhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanamiti vitashokah yada pashyate rukmavarnam kartaramisham purusham brahmayonim tada vidvan punyapape vidhuya niranjana paramam samyamupaiti prano yesha yas sarvabhutair vibhati vijanan vidvan bhavate nativadi atmakrida atmaratikriyavan desha brahmavidam varish esha brahmavidam varishtah satyena labhyah tapasa yesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam antah-sharire jyotirmayo hi shubhrah yam pashyanti yata yakshina doshaha. So we are seeing this third chapter, first section, which begins with a beautiful metaphor of the two birds. So these two birds on the same tree, one eating the fruits and another just witnessing. These two birds are the two expression of Brahma in this body. One is Jiva and another is Ishvara. Though they appear to be different when we are ignorant, but when we gain that knowledge, we come to know that we are one only. So Jeev and Ishvara essentially are one, but due to upadhis appear to be different. So this Jiva, because of his ignorance, have this notion that I am the doer of action, I am the enjoyer of the results of action, I am the knower. But these are all the activities of the body, the mind. But he assumes on himself these activities and get bound, feel a lot of sorrow and pain. So when such a Jiva, by Bhagwan's grace and by Guru Kripa, come to recognize, come to see within, and come to recognize that Ishvara within one's own Antahkarana, when he come to see that Ishvara is my very Swarupa, when such a thing happens, when this knowledge and realization take place, then he becomes free from all this samsara bandhan. So an enlightened master always revels in his own self he is well established in that self as Brahma, so always revels in his own self. Atma kridaha, atma ratihi, kriyavan, esha Brahma vidam varishtaha, is the best among all the knowers of Brahma. See, after knowing that I am Brahma, we have to meditate, we have to do nididhyasana. So the more we do our practice of nididhyasana, more we gain abidance in ourself as Brahma. So in the beginning, our mind, we will not be able to abide in ourself as Brahma, but as we continue with our practice, we will be able to gain that complete abidance. So one who has gained 100% abidance in his own self, one who always revels in his own self and doesn't see anything other than the self, is the best among all the knowers of Brahma. So there are this, you can say there are these few steps which we have to take in our sadhana. The first is that we have to follow the path of dharma. By following path of adharma, we cannot attain that Brahma. So first we have to follow the path of dharma, give up all adharma and papa karma. Thereafter we have to dedicate our actions to Ishvara, that is karma yoga. So through karma yoga, our Antahkarana start becoming more and more pure. And when the Antahkarana becomes pure, then naturally the jidnyasa arises in our Antahkarana to know our own self, to know Ishvara. So we approach a teacher. Just as in this Upanishad also, we find the disciple approaching the teacher and asking him a very subtle question about that supreme reality. Ki kasminno bhagavo vijñāte sarvam idam vijñātam bhavati iti. That what is that one thing knowing which everything becomes known. So teacher then guides the student and gives him the knowledge of that self. So once we gain that self-knowledge, then we have to renounce all karma, renounce the sense of doership, and meditate continuously to gain abidance in our own self. And once we gain that abidance, we become free of this samsara. So to gain that knowledge of the self, the purity of our Antahkarana is very important. So that purity of the Antahkarana is attained by pursuing the path of Karma Yoga as taught in Bhagavad Gita, also by doing upasana and sincerely cultivating the important values of life, like amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam. All these values, important values, have to be cultivated, because those are the signs of purity of our mind. When our mind becomes pure, we will follow the path of Satya only. So here in this mantra, the teacher gives some important values which we have to cultivate as we practice Karma Yoga and Upasana. And what are they? Ki Satya, Satyena labhyaha tapasa yesha Atma. That is Atma, which is our own self only, but as though it is not attained. Though we are of the nature of bliss, we don't experience that bliss. So we have as though not attained our own self. So how can we attain this self? So here the teacher says, by practicing the path of Satya. Satya is truthfulness. Because when we follow this path of truthfulness, our buddhi becomes very, very pure. Because that buddhi has to be tuned to that reality. And for that tuning, the buddhi has to be extremely pure. And that purity comes in buddhi when we pursue this path of Satya. Because any lie or any asatya disturbs the buddhi. See, just like a lake is there with clean water. The waters are absolutely still. But if you throw a pebble, then the ripples start arising in that water. A pebble disturbs the tranquility of that water. But if there are no pebbles, if there are no undercurrents, then the water remains absolutely still. Similarly, when we have all good qualities, then our Antahkarana becomes absolutely still. And in that stillness, we come to understand that self, supreme self. But any lie disturbs the buddhi. And this we see in our day-to-day life also. That when we pursue the path of truth, then our mind remains calm, peaceful. But when we lie, then the other person may not know that it is a lie, but our own buddhi knows it. And our own buddhi will disturb us, will keep telling us that what you have said is not true. So there will be an agitation in the buddhi. Buddhi will become restless when we pursue the path of a lie. Therefore, Satya is considered to be very, very important sadhana. But as it is said, it is meant for those who have attained that self-knowledge and have actually also have renounced all extra activities in this world. So, nivritti pradhan. So, Satya, then tapas. Another important quality which the teacher tells, which is helpful in gaining that self-knowledge and abidance in the self, is tapas. Tapas means austerity. And what is austerity? Kimcha tapasa hi indriya mana ekagrataya. It is the concentration of the mind and the senses. Shankaracharya quotes from Mahabharata. He says, from Mahabharata he quotes, ki manascha indriyanancha hi ekagram paramam tapaha. The ekagrata, the single pointedness of the senses and the mind is called tapas. Tapas doesn't mean just to some torturing the body, doing some vigorous sharirik tapas is not what is meant here. Shankaracharya writes, ki tadhi anukulam atmadarshanaabhimukhi bhavat paramam sadhanam tapo. Because this tapas of ekagrata takes us near our goal of enlightenment. And here is not meant other tapas like Chandrayana, etc. So, the senses, the mind has to be focused on our goal. They should not get distracted. That is the tapas. Like Parvati ji did tapas to attain Lord Shiva, she was not disturbed and distracted by anything. and she was willing to do this tapas for many, many lifetimes also. कि जन्म कोटि लगी रगर हमारी वरहु शंभु नतुक रहहु कुवारी. She says, even in koti janma, my only intention and desire is to attain Lord Shiva. Even if I have to take crores of birth, I have only that one goal in my mind. That is called tapas. Total single-pointedness of vision. Single-pointedness towards our goal. Concentrating all our faculties towards that goal. The senses, the mind is what is called tapas. So through tapas also we attain that Atma. Then Esha Atma Labhyah iti Anushangah. So through tapas, through satya, this Atma is attained. Also Samyak Jnanena Brahmacharyena Nityam. Also through Brahmacharya, following the path of Brahmacharya, that is restraining ourselves from too much of indulgence in sense pleasure. Because the senses, when they start indulging in sense pleasure, they also get distracted, and in turn they distract the mind, the intellect also. Also they become weak. In Kathopanishad also we saw that Nachiketa told Yamraji, when he offered various pleasures, Nachiketa told Yamraji, all these pleasures I don't want, because they take away the vigor, the strength of the senses. Jarayanti tejaha. They take away the teja of the senses. So that Brahmacharya is also a very important quality. Because if we start indulging in the pleasures, sensual pleasures of this world, then that intensity, that desire to attain that supreme will become weak. Will not be there. It will just get wasted in the worldly pursuits. And the worldly pleasures will not be lasting. They will always end in sorrow and pain, but they will also remove the intensity of my desire to attain that supreme. So this Brahmacharya is a very important quality which also a sadhak should cultivate. So when we have the Satya, Tapas and Brahmacharya, through this purity of the Antahkarana, we also then have to gain the theoretical understanding of our own self. That is called Samyak Jnana, proper knowledge of our own self. See, at present we know ourselves, but what we know is incorrect. All of us, we know our own self. Without knowing ourselves, we cannot function in this world. So I know myself, but what I know myself is incorrect. I consider myself this physical body. I consider myself the Sukshma Sharir. I consider myself the Karta, Bhokta, Jnata. So this knowledge about myself which I have is incorrect. Though I am very convinced about it, but it is not true. I say I am this body, but body gets totally dropped when we go to sleep. So I am separated from the body. That means I am a separate entity other than the body. I get separated from my mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankar also. Means separated from the sukshma sharir when I am in deep sleep. That means I, the entity, is different from the sukshma sharir. If you can separate yourself, that means they are different. Like suppose I mistake myself as my dress. Then if I remove the dress and keep it aside, then I will be convinced that I am different from this dress. Because I have removed it and I exist here, I am not existing in that removed dress. Similarly, the gross physical body as well as the sukshma sharir are like dresses which we wear and which we remove also every day when we are in deep sleep. So I, the self, is different from the sthula sharir and sukshma sharir. But who is that I? Who am I is not very clear. Though I know what I am not. When I investigate, when I do some chintan, I will come to know what I am not. But what I am, I cannot know. And what I am is told to me by the Shastras, by the scriptures. The scriptures tell me that you are Brahma. So that knowledge we cannot gain by ourselves. So when the scriptures tell me that I am Brahma, then Brahma is just a name for me. So the scriptures also indicate the nature of that Brahma as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. The Nirgun, Nirakar nature of that Brahma is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. And that same Brahma expresses as this world. So that is the Saguna Roop of this Brahma. So Brahma is Nirgun, Nirakar as well as Saguna, Sakar also. So that Brahma am I. So this Brahma we have to first comprehend with the help of our buddhi. We have to gain knowledge of Brahma with the help of our buddhi. Yesterday, as I was saying, that we gain knowledge through our senses also, with the help of our mind and with the help of our buddhi. Ultimately, the buddhi comes to know. So the senses, how do they gain the knowledge? So as I said, if I want to gain the knowledge of some sound, that sound is created in the world outside, and sound is the characteristic of space. And from that same space, the instrument of measuring sound is created, which is called the ears. Our ears are made, our ears means not the physical ears, but that ability which we have to hear sound is a product of space only. So when the sound is there in the world outside, similar sound get created in our ears, and we come to understand that sound. Same thing goes to the sight and taste and fragrance, etc. But what about the mind? There are certain things which we understand directly with the help of our mind, like time. Actually, time and space also is directly comprehended with the help of our mind. We see some object and we see some movement in that object. So by seeing that object, we come to understand the distance, and also seeing the movement, we come to understand time. So time is experienced with our mind. We also experience emotions in our mind. Those emotions are reactions to the outer stimuli. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, which we experience through the senses. Our mind reacts to them and we experience the emotions. So I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel frightened. So all these emotions are experienced in the mind. The mind assumes the form of those emotions and we experience them. Suppose somebody is sad. If I can empathize with that person, then I also feel that sadness in my mind and I can experience what the other person is feeling. So mind is also a very beautiful instrument which, when it tunes with the emotions or whatever emotions are there in the mind, that is experienced by me. But subtler than the mind is our buddhi. So buddhi also takes the form of that which we understand. We see a beautiful flower, so that is seen by our eyes, and the similar image is formed in our mind and understood by our buddhi. So buddhi, that knowledge happens in the buddhi that this is a flower. Somebody comes and tells, oh, this is called rose. So the buddhi gains that knowledge that this is a rose. So buddhi has the ability to gain knowledge when that similar thing, that image is formed in the buddhi. Suppose there is a rope which appears like a snake. A rope which appears like a snake. So eyes look at that object and reports this information to the mind reports it to the buddhi. Buddhi checks the memory and comes to understand that this type of looking, that object which is being seen by the eyes, if you go into the past and check the memory, it appears like a snake, so it must be a snake. So buddhi concludes that it is a snake. But this conclusion of the buddhi is not proper, it's wrong. But whatever it concludes, it accepts. So since it has concluded that it is a snake, it gets frightened. I get frightened, I want to run away, and all those things. But then the buddhi informs the mind, and the mind informs the eyes to check the object properly. थोड़ा आगे जाके देखो, हाँ ठीक तरह से. Buddhi tells the mind tells the senses. Then they go ahead and check and come to know, oh, it is just a rope. So the buddhi gains the knowledge that it is a rope which appears like a snake, but it is a rope. So there is no need to be frightened. So like that, this buddhi has got this ability to know. So it knows things when it also develops that similar type of sensation within. So ultimately this buddhi has to know Atma. But Atma doesn't have any shape. Atma doesn't have any form. Atma doesn't have any color. Atma doesn't have any fragrance. So how can an image of that Atma be formed in the buddhi? This question was raised in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Shankaracharya ji in his commentary, commenting on the 50th shloka, कि सिद्धिं प्राप्तो यथा ब्रह्म तथाप्नोति निबोध में समासेनैव कौन्तेय निष्ठात् ज्ञानस्य या परा. In that shloka, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna कि after gaining that knowledge of Brahma, which is that Shuddha Atma, one has to gain nishtha in that knowledge. One should gain that abidance. And how that abidance can be gained, I will tell you. But the question is that Atma or that Brahma is so pure, doesn't have any color, doesn't have any qualities. How can the knowledge of that happen in our buddhi? Shankaracharya ji in his commentary itself, he raises that question, which we have seen when we were studying Bhagavad Gita, but many of us might have forgotten it. So just to remind you, so question was raised ki katham tarhi atmano jnanam, how can we gain that self knowledge? Sarvam hi yad vishayam jnanam tat tat akaram bhavati. Because whatever knowledge we gain, that type of akar is formed in our buddhi. That is called knowledge. When the buddhi forms the image of a flower, then we gain the knowledge of the flower. When the buddhi forms the image of a bird, then we get the knowledge of the bird. But the Atma doesn't have any image, any form. Sarvam hi yad vishayam jnanam tad akaram bhavati. Nirakara cha Atma iti uktam. Atma is nirakar. So jnanatmanoho cha ubhayoho nirakaratve katham tad bhavana nishta iti. So how can we gain the knowledge of that Atma? It is nirakar. So it is not possible to gain such a knowledge. So Shankaracharya ji replies, he says, no, it is possible. How is it possible? He says, कि अत्यंत निर्मलत्व स्वच्छत्व सूक्ष्मत्व उपपत्तेः आत्मनः. This Atma, as indicated in our Shastra, is, how is it indicated? It is atyanta nirmala. It is extremely pure. Means free from any mala. Extremely pure. Swachha. Extremely clear. And sukshma. Supremely subtle. That's what the scriptures say about this Atma. So, there are no color, there are no form, there are no taste, there is no sound in that Atma. It is extremely pure and subtle. So, how can the buddhi understand this Atma? Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji writes that our buddhi also has a quality. Buddhi can also be purified to become like that Atma. Buddhehe cha Atma samanai sama nairmalyadi upapattehe. The buddhi also can become like like Atma, Nirmal, Shuddha, Sukshma. And when that Buddhi becomes Nirmal, Shuddha, Sukshma, that in that Buddhi we come to understand that Brahma, that Atma. We gain the knowledge of Atma in a Shuddha Buddhi. Nirmala the Upapattehe Atma Chaitanya Akara Bhasatva Upapattihi. So Atma Chaitanya Abhas happens in that Buddhi. For this, let me give you that example again of the so this is our gross physical body, let us say, and inside this body is our Sukshma Sharir, which contains the 19 parts, the Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Pranas, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta and Ahankar. And they are very subtle, they have the ability to know. So, now this Sukshma Sharir, imagine this is the Sukshma Sharir. It is our Buddhi and all, okay? Now suppose this Buddhi wants to know some object. Let us another person is there. So that image of this object happens in the Buddhi. And it comes to know the other person or any other object. The image happens in this Buddhi. But this Atma is like Akash. Atma is like Akash. It doesn't have any color, it doesn't have any form, it doesn't have any other quality. Atma is like Akash. But very interesting, the Sukshma Sharir or the Buddhi also can become as pure and as transparent like the Akash, like this glass. This glass, when it is extremely clean and pure, you cannot separate it from space. Therefore, you will find that many times these birds and all, they don't see the glass window and they try to fly and they bang across on the glass pane. So similarly, this Buddhi is like this glass which can become so pure, so clean. When we do the sadhana, we are cleaning it. All our upasana, our nama japa, our karma yoga, our chintan, manan, satsang is purifying this Buddhi. And when it becomes extremely pure, then it becomes as clean as space. It becomes as clean as Atma. So in that Buddhi, the image as though of that Atma happens. In the purified Buddhi, the image of Atma happens. And when that image happens of that Atma, the Buddhi gets convinced that yes, this is Atma and this am I. The Buddhi gets Atma means the Shuddha Atma, that is Brahma. The Buddhi comes to know that this Brahma is not just a theory, that Brahma is not just something told in the scriptures, that Brahma is not something just some concept, but that Brahma is an existing entity and this is it. I am experiencing it. That image is being formed in me. So Buddhi gets 100% convinced about that Brahma. So I, who am using this buddhi, that conviction happens in the buddhi about that nature of that Atma. So this knowledge which happens in the buddhi is very important. But this knowledge is still in the buddhi only. Still there is a Dvaita Bhavana is there. I am different and this knowledge is different. I am different and this knowledge which has happened in the buddhi is different. But the buddhi is convinced. I am convinced about the existence of this Brahma, which is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, extremely pure, extremely subtle. Thereafter the scripture says that this Brahma which you have understood is your own self, which you are experiencing in your deep sleep, free from the upadhis, free from your stula sharir, sukshma sharir. That self is this Brahma. So what I have objectively understood as Brahma, I have to subjectively experience as my own self. That process is what is called nididhyasan. What I have objectively understood and am convinced about that Brahma, I have to subjectively experience as my own self. Because that is that self which I am experiencing also has got all the lakshanas of Brahma. It is also Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. It's also extremely pure, subtle, Shuddha. So I, with the help of buddhi, what I have understood, I should then shift the attention of the buddhi towards the innermost self. The buddhi then gain abidance in that self. The buddhi as though dissolves in that self. So this is a very, very mysterious and a subtle and a mystical sadhana, the nididhyasan, which ultimately leads to the abidance in that self. So for all this, the purity of the buddhi is very important. If we just gain just superficial knowledge without that conviction, then that will not help. Therefore in Brahma Sutra Bhashya also Shankaracharya ji has written कि ज्ञान प्रमाणेन avagantum ishtam Brahma, that when we gain this knowledge of that Brahma, then only we will arrive at gaining that realization of that Brahma, direct experience of that Brahma. See, just as we say, let us say, in the world also we say that seeing is believing. Suppose I tell you that I show you some item and say that it is very sweet. It is very sweet. Just like when we go to the market and all, we want to buy some mangoes. Nowadays mangoes are coming. So we want to buy mangoes. So we look at all those mangoes there in the market, and the mango seller tells you, "बहुत मीठा है, बहुत मीठा है." But just by him saying "बहुत मीठा है" will not convince us. Then he just squeezes some mango juice in our palm. He said, "देखो खा के." So I just taste it, and yeah, it's meetha. It's really meetha. I am convinced. Why am I convinced? because my tongue gets the direct experience of that mithas. Similarly, the scripture says that Brahma is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. The Brahma is big, large, sukshma, pure. I may believe what the scriptures are saying, but I will not get conviction unless my buddhi experiences it directly. And buddhi can experience it when it becomes extremely pure. See, for example, if there is let us say there is some object. Let us say there is a beautiful flower on the tree. I tell you that, oh, look at that beautiful flower is there on that tree. So you try to see it, but you don't see it, so you are not convinced. Then you wipe your eyes or you use some instrument, binoculars and all, and then you come to see it and you are convinced. But if there is some defect in your eyes, you will not be able to see it properly and will never get convinced. Similarly, if there is impurity in our buddhi, we don't get the proper knowledge of that Brahma. But when our buddhi becomes pure, then we gain that image of that Brahma in our buddhi and we get convinced that yes, this is Brahma. And the scripture says that this Brahma is your own self. So we have to then, and that self is experience. We get the sample of the taste of that Brahma every time we go into deep sleep. We get the taste of bliss. We get the taste of infinity. We get the taste of Advaita. See, when we are in deep sleep, we are alone. You may be sleeping with other people around, but when we are in deep sleep, nobody is around us. We are alone. Advaita, there is no duality in deep sleep. We don't experience duality in deep sleep. Again, there is no limitation of any kind. No body, no time, no space is limiting us. So we are unlimited, infinite. And we are of the nature of knowledge also. Therefore, we know about the deep sleep. So the lakshanas of Brahma, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, we experience in our own self. So what we have understood with our buddhi as Brahma, we have to then experience that Brahma as our own self. That is the nididhyasan. So all this we can do when we make the buddhi pure. And the purity of buddhi comes when we cultivate the values like Satyam, Tapas, Brahmacharya. These are the signs that the buddhi has become pure. How you know the buddhi is pure? When we have these values in us. If these values are not there, then the buddhi has not become pure. But if Satyam, Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Parigraha, these values automatically manifest in us, then we know that our buddhi has become pure. Like we clean the window, how you know it has become clean? When you don't see any dust, when you don't see anything else. When you don't see actually the window, then we say it is clean. But if you see the window, that means you are seeing some dust. That means it is not clean. Similarly, when we have these values, amyanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, then the mind has become clean. So, following this path of Satya, etc., ena akramanti rishayah hi aptakamaha. Walking on this path, the great rishis who have attained that purity of their Antahkarana, such rishis, such seekers, walking on this path, yatra satyasya paramam nidhanam, they attain that which is the very abode of that Satya. Means they attain that Brahma. By walking this path, the seekers, they attain that Brahma, which is the very abode of all these great qualities. Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteya, Brahmacharya. Where is the source? Where is the very abode of all these great qualities? The abode is Brahma itself. Just like we see, when we look around, we see a lot of light around. But what is the abode of all this light? The abode is the Surya, the sun. Similarly, where is the abode of Satya? It is that Brahma only. So the rishis, following the path of Satya, they attain that Brahma. So rishayah darshanavantah kuhaka maya shatya ahankara dambha anrita varjitaha, free from all their all impurities, all deceit, free from ahankar, free from hypocrisy, free from falsehood. When they walk this path, free from all desires, vigata trishna, aptakama vigata trishna, sarvato yatra yasmin, tat paramartha tattvam, that paramartha tattva, which is all pervading, which is there everywhere, which is the very paramam nidhanam, which is the very abode of that Satya, etc. Satyasya uttama sadhanasya sambandhi sadhyam paramam prakrishtam nidhanam purushartha rupena nidhiyate iti nidhanam vartate. Where that nidhana is there, means the ultimate abode is there, they attain that abode. Tatra chena patha akramanti sa satyena vitata iti purvena sambandha. So that path is spread out in that value of Satya, etc. See, when a person is in a dark cave, we don't see the exit anywhere. It's so dark. Then from a distance we see some light. Then we start moving toward that light, and that light leads us out of that cave. Like you must have seen a tunnel and all, so dark inside. As the train passes through the tunnel, it becomes so dark. Then from a distance you can see the exit of that tunnel, fully lighted. And as the train moves towards that, then suddenly it comes out in the open and you experience the light everywhere. Similarly, that Supreme Brahma is like the light of all the lights. But these values like Satyam, Ahimsa, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Tapas, etc. are like the sparks of that light only. So we have to just move in there, taking their support, and they will lead us toward that Supreme Brahma. Therefore, the importance of these values mentioned in our Shastras and mentioned elaborately in Bhagavad Gita also. So, in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan mentions this value. Before talking about that Brahma, he tells Arjuna that you have to cultivate these values. He calls these values also Jnanam only. अमानित्वम अदम्भित्वम अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम आचार्योपासनं शौचं स्थैर्यम् आत्मविनिग्रहः इंद्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहंकार एव च जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यञ्च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वं तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा. So these are all called jnanam because they give us knowledge. Ultimately this purity gives us knowledge. Okay. So more about this we will see in our next class. Today is also a very auspicious day. So I am very happy that all of you attended this class today. No doubt you are attending regularly. But today is so auspicious. It is Akshaya Tritiya. So whatever sadhana we do, whatever we do today, gains more power and more force. Becomes Akshay, becomes imperishable. So today you can spend some time doing your sadhana, chant Bhagwan's name, meditate, do some chintan, read some good books, do some satsang, remain happy, keep smiling, remain peaceful, pray to Bhagwan, pray for everyone's welfare. Okay? And we will meet again tomorrow. Till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana, listen to the pravachan again. And we meet again tomorrow for Sundarkand. We will chant Sundarkand and listen to the beautiful charitra of Hanumanji. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. Boli Sya Ramachandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.